It's Nick Evans with StraitCats.com, and today we are pleased to have Jacksonville State play-by-play guy Mike Parris along with us. Mike, thanks for joining us today.
Appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
All right. Well, today we're going to learn about Kentucky's next opponent on Saturday, the Jacksonville State Gamecocks, and the Gamecocks will enter the game with a 5-1 record and currently ranked 8th in the FCS and are first in the OVC. Mike, if you just want to start off by talking about your all season so far.
Well, first of all, we haven't played Florida, LSU, or South Carolina like Kentucky has. We dumped out first game of the season with a conference outing against Tennessee Martin and had a trail 23-10 going to the fourth quarter and rallied to win it. Lost our starting quarterback, Marquez Ivory, in that contest. Cody Blanchard, who played quite a bit a year ago, our number 2 guy, came in and rallied the team to the victory. We got beat in week 2 at Chattanooga and then started putting some things together. They had to tweak the offense because Marquez Ivory and Cody Blanchard, 2 different type guys running the offense and quarterback. So we played a little bit better week 3 against Georgia State and beat them, and they got back into conference play against Eastern Illinois and played better there. And then at Murray State, played pretty good, had the game of control, let them back in it a couple of times in that one. And then this past week came back after an open day to beat Austin Peay. So it's a team that probably is the most talented that Jack Crow's had since he became our head coach here 12 years ago. But we are very young in spots. Got some youngsters on the offensive line and some youngsters in the secondary as well. Some true freshmen that are playing there, and you'll see true freshmen spotted throughout the depth chart for the Gamecocks. But have progressed pretty much, played pretty good every week again. But we haven't played the caliber of folks that Kentucky's played so far this season.
Right, and you mentioned that this is Crow's best team, but last year they went into Oxford and upset Ole Miss, and they played Florida State close a couple years ago. So I imagine they're going into the game in Lexington this Saturday with some confidence, right?
I would think so. Go back 2 years ago to Florida State. They scored 12 points in the last, 35, 40 seconds of the game to beat us 19-9. We led 9-3. Spent the whole game there, and then they came back and I should say 9-6 we led there, and they came back and got the 2 touchdowns. And it's last year at Ole Miss down going into the fourth quarter and rallied to win that one. So our guys, we've got some talent. You know about Rashawn Ely, probably transferred from Georgia. We've got some other guys who's transferred from the FBS level. So we've got talent. I mean, obviously Kentucky will have SEC size and SEC speed, and I think we can match up with them in some places. But I think, as Coach Crow said earlier this week at his press conference, that they'll be better than we are at some positions as well, and obviously 85 scholarships to 63, so there's a difference there. And at some point in time, I think that'll probably play a part in the contest. But our guys have played well. Ole Miss, Florida State, and some other games we played, even though the score might not indicate it. A few years back in Mississippi State, didn't play that badly there. And it got a little, I guess you'd say, uglier. They got a couple of touchdowns late to stretch it out there in the contest over in Starkville. But we, for the most part, have given a pretty good accountability of ourselves in games like this.
Right, and I saw in Crow's press conference that he mentioned that previously in their game last year against Ole Miss, they felt that they had the ability to kind of sneak up on them. But he talked about how this year with Kentucky, how that doesn't really play into the effect as much because they are coming off a bye. How do you think that affects Jacksonville State's preparation this week?
I think our guys are preparing. I know the coaches are trying to prepare them for the fact that Kentucky's going to be ready, and that Ole Miss thing. Every time I think that we line up to play one of these, somebody's going to bring that up. Hey, these are the guys that went to Oxford, Mississippi, and beat Ole Miss. Just like even it's been a few years now since Appalachian State went to Ann Arbor and beat Michigan. That still comes up when they play somebody at the FBS level. Anytime somebody at our level at FCS goes on the road to beat an FBS team, I think you get talked about for a while after that. And those, it doesn't happen that often. Those are few and far between. We could probably play Ole Miss 100 times, and that might be the only time that Jacksonville State would beat Ole Miss in that situation. So, but our guys know that Kentucky, I think, as Coach Crow said, they won't be. I don't think they will be surprised when the game gets started. It won't be a letdown in any form or fashion from Kentucky or anything like that. And that goes back, I'm sure that Joker Phillips has been telling his guys, hey, this bunch went to Oxford. They beat an SEC opponent last year, so they're not going to be intimidated, and you can't take them lightly. And I don't foresee us for the next few years, anybody taking us for granted in that kind of a situation.
Right, and another thing that Crow spoke about in his press conference, and I think you mentioned it briefly, was that he feels that Jacksonville State has some players that are good or better than UK at many of their positions. I mean, obviously, one of those guys is Georgia transfer Wayshawn Ely. But who are some of the other players that Coach Crow was talking about?
I would think one guy that's going to match up pretty well would be linebacker Clarence Jackson. He's a transfer from Ole Miss. We did not have him the first 2 games of the season. He didn't get going until week 3 against Georgia State, but in that time, he's now our 3rd leading tackler. He's returned a block kick for a touchdown. He's picked off a pass. He's forced a fumble. He has generally been blowing things up on the defensive side of the football, and he's a guy 6'2", 225, 230, 235, and he's an SEC guy. He's from the Atlanta area and signed, as I said, with Ole Miss, and actually was on that other sideline last year when we went to Oxford and beat them. So he's a guy that's SEC material. We've got a Jameson Wadley, defensive lineman, who originally signed in Southern Mississippi. He's sort of a local guy. He's from about 30 miles from our campus here. Those 3 guys. We've got another guy who's transferred from a school in the Mid-America Conference from Western Michigan. So we're dotted with some guys there, and they think we've got some youngsters that are going to be some playmakers. Some of them have made plays already, and we've got some guys that they think are going to continue to be playmakers for us. I just think it boils down to we can't afford to make mistakes, whether it be penalties or turnovers. I think in a game like this, you don't necessarily have to play a perfect game, but you can't give Kentucky or anybody that you're playing when you step up a level like this, you just cannot give them extra opportunities or extra chances in a game like this.
Right, and getting back to Wayshawn Ely, I mean, this is a guy that Kentucky fans and Kentucky is familiar with. Last year with Georgia, he put up almost 160 yards and set a school record with 5 touchdowns. What has he meant to Jacksonville State so far this season?
Well, I don't know if he was trying to do too much early in the season. He did have an injury or 2 that really hampered him at the outset of the season, so I don't think he was really at full speed or full strength maybe till about week 3, and he ran for just under 100 yards against Georgia State, and since then, 3 games in a row, he's been 100+. He's averaging right at 99 yards per game on the ground now, and he hasn't really broken one. I think 27 yards is his longest run, and he's not a speed merchant or anything like that, but he's a guy, he's had it 25, 26, 27 times a game so far for us. So he's the guy I think you can count on to get you that 5, 6, 7 yards when you need it. And I think he brings some confidence knowing that he's back there, that he will be able to produce. Our offensive line, we lost the guy that's arguably our best offensive lineman before the season started. He had an injury and is out for the year. We've got another guy that's coming back from an injury last year who has played at times, but he only played about a quarter up at Austin Peay the other night. And we've got some young guys in there, and it took them a while to gel up front, and I think he maybe got frustrated early because the holes maybe weren't there like he was used to seeing in Athens when he was playing for the Bulldogs. But everything has pretty much come together the last 3 weeks. And I think maybe he sort of familiarized himself a little bit more with the surroundings. And obviously this is, he's not in the SEC anymore. He's not at Georgia. And I don't know if he thought he was going to come in and I don't know if I should say dominate, but have things go pretty well for him. And maybe he was trying to do too much, as I said earlier. But the last 3 weeks, it seems to me he's been more comfortable and more relaxed and maybe a little more patient waiting for things to develop before he kicks it and takes off on a run.
Yeah, and looking at the stats, I mean, you notice very quickly that Jacksonville State has 300 more rushing yards than they do passing yards. Is that something that they try to do every year, or is that something that they've adjusted this year with their personnel because of the addition of Ely?
Well, the last few years we've probably thrown it a little more than we've run it, and we had Ryan Parris 2 years ago, quarterbacked us in 2008 and 2009, and we might not have had the talent in the backfield that we'd had earlier, but you go back to the prior years, we joined the Ohio Valley Conference back in 2003, and I think those first 4 or 5 years in the league, we led the league in rushing. We're at least top 2 in the league in rushing, and we had tailbacks that toted the load for us, as the old saying goes, and that's more of I think the way that Crow would like to do it. Control the game with your ground attack, and then sprinkle in some passes. But then with a talent like Ryan Parris, we got to throwing the ball there for more the last couple of years. And then Marquez Ivory threw it extremely well for us last year in 2010. But really didn't have somebody that in the backfield that could count on for 20, 25 carries a game at that point in time. And with the addition with Shawnee Lee and with his transfer to coming in here, at Crow wanted to get back to that, to running the football a little bit more. Plus, with Ivory's injury, Cody Blanchard played some last year but didn't have a whole lot of experience, and he wasn't there in the spring because he's a two-sport guy. He plays baseball as well, and an outstanding baseball player. So he wasn't there in the spring and got hurt, was limited at times during two-a-days preseason camp when it started in August. So factor all that in, and that's led to trying to create more of a ground attack this year as well.
And speaking of Blanchard, I noticed that last year he was named OVP Freshman of the Year, but that was mainly due to his ability to run the football, and he actually punted as well. But more specifically, can you talk about Blanchard's strengths and weaknesses at the quarterback position?
Well, Cody he was Mr. Football in the state of Alabama in his senior year. His high school team got beat in the state finals his junior year. They won the state title then in his senior campaign. He's a guy who's a tremendous athlete. In baseball, he plays second, short, and third. He hit almost 400 the first half of the season, and I think his body just got tired and worn down with playing football and then going into baseball. And he ended up, I think he hit about 340 for the year, was a freshman All-American in baseball as well. So, he's a guy that came in at Ole Miss, played well in that game over there, actually threw the touchdown pass in overtime that set up that game-winning two-point play as well. And we were limited, I guess you would say, last year with what we did because of his inexperience. And I think teams got a little better in scheming him and knowing what the package might be in the second half to the latter part of the season in 2010. But the fact now that he is the starting quarterback, I think they've tweaked the offense, and you can see it especially from about the third week on where some things tweaked it a little bit. We'll run a few more options with him than we would have if Marquez Ivory was still our starting quarterback at this point in time. As I said, he's an athlete, and I think his strength is probably letting him sprint out to pass, try to get to the corner and take advantage of his athletic ability, his quickness. And, he's our third leading rusher coming into the game on Saturday against Kentucky. And I go back to, you ask about a weakness, probably just inexperience in the fact that he hasn't been through spring yet. He's played baseball last year, and he hasn't been a full-time football player where most guys are doing it year-round as it is today. So that, to me, that'd be the biggest weakness is the fact is experience maybe it's not what other guys who are playing college football would be.
Okay. And to switch gears a little bit, just talk a little bit about Jacksonville State's defense. Through 6 games, they forced 15 turnovers, recorded 10 interceptions. Why have they had so much success causing turnovers?
Well, we've intercepted 10 passes, and through the first 5 games, we've only picked off 5, and then we picked off 5 in one game against Austin Peay last Saturday. We forced, as you said, the 16 turnovers. New defensive coordinator, in fact, just about an entirely new defensive coaching staff. Some of those guys were on the staff, either coaching other positions or maybe even coaching on offense, and we had to change the defense coordinator. Chris Boone came in, and we have a new cornerbacks coach, and then a couple of guys that are coaching have changed positions now as to what they were coaching in the past. We didn't look very good on defense, to be quite honest, the first couple of games, but we've gotten better on that side of the football as the season has gone on. It's an intricate system, and I think the guys, it just took them a little while. You could do it in practice, going back to preseason camp and even back to last spring, but until you get in the game and everybody starts running around and that sort of thing, when it's for real, they didn't know what to expect. And I think it took really going into the third game before guys felt comfortable with their roles. And I have no clue what's going to happen Saturday, but it did look like last week, really for the first time in that game against Austin Peay, our guys on defense were reacting instead of thinking they were reacting and just going after it. Our front four is probably the strength right there. You got 3 veterans up front, including guys of preseason OVC Defensive Player of the Year at Monte Lewis. He's a defensive end. All 4 of those guys up front have had some injuries, but that open date helped, and that's a strength there. I mentioned Clarence Jackson earlier, the guy at middle linebacker. He's definitely added something since the NCAA cleared him. and he got in week 3. Secondary, young in some spots, got a couple of freshmen, 2 true freshmen who will play, and one of them will play quite a bit back there as a safety. But we've got guys that can run, got some size up front with those defensive linemen. The secondary, people have been able to throw it against us this year, and they were better last week, so we'll see what Kentucky has to offer here on Saturday, what kind of game plan that Coach Phillips and his bunch has put together.
Yeah, and with the way, I mean, it goes without saying to say that Kentucky has struggled offensively all year, and Morgan Newton has struggled with his decision-making. So I would think entering the game, Jacksonville State's got to feel like this is an area where they can make some hay and possibly get a turnover for a score and be in. I mean, this is one way where they can definitely get the upset.
Well, that would be one thing going in as an underdog you look at there to try to take advantage of some turnovers. I have seen Kentucky a couple of times on TV this year, one of them being the LSU game. I saw a little bit of that one in one of the other contests. I know Newton's a big guy, and he is an athlete, and our coach is impressed with him, with what they've seen, and they are concerned about him. He's a big guy, bigger than most of the quarterbacks we see at our level in the Ohio Valley Conference. So concerned about him. I know concerned about a couple of wide receivers as well that Kentucky has, and I believe Coleman's out and done for the year in injury, so I'm not sure. I really don't know what to expect there from that standpoint. So as far as trying to run the football, hopefully we can force him into some mistakes. And I think that's a key for Jacksonville State to get a win, is force some mistakes and try to take advantage of those and obviously get points out of them if they can force some of those turnovers.
All right, and I guess to close here, got any predictions for Saturday?
I think, if we don't lay the ball on the ground and throw some interceptions or something, I think it'll be could be a close game. I go back again, jumping up a level. It is the SEC, and from what I understand, people in the Bluegrass State not real happy right now, and the record is at 2-4. But again, you look at Florida, that was before Brantley got hurt, and they were a top 15 team when they beat Kentucky, and then LSU and South Carolina. You don't have to say anything about either one of those. And with what Spurrier's, got at South Carolina, and obviously LSU is pretty good. Well, we haven't seen that kind of talent. I think the opening of the game, the first few minutes, maybe through the first quarter, our guys are going to have to adjust to the speed, because Kentucky, the speed of the game will be quicker with them on both sides of the football, and I just think the longer that we can stay in the game, if that happens, without giving up some big plays and Kentucky jumping out early, I think the longer we stay in the game and gain confidence in there, I think that's a plus for us. And it's going to be tough to try to move against them. Just looking at both sides of the football, their line, they've got tremendous size on both sides, and outstanding linebacker and Trevathan, and then Guy of the secondaries. He's a great player as well. So I know everybody talks about Ole Miss, but some things will have to go right for Jacksonville State to have a chance to upend Kentucky Saturday at Commonwealth.
Well, Mike, I appreciate you coming on, and wish you luck on Saturday. And enjoyed speaking with you.
Thank you. I appreciate it too. See you Saturday.
All right, sounds good. Have a good day. That was Mike Parris, the radio guy for Jacksonville State University. Signing off, Nick Evans for StraitCats.com.